Alright, this is my 88 Foxbody. It's got a 347, just naturally aspirated, so I don't have any boost control or anything else I'm trying to run. Simple build. I retained my stock gauges, so this is where it's different, but hopefully some of this helps you. I have, like we were talking about inside, my battery is up front, and I ran my power and ground to my battery. The coil plug is stock. I had the green and yellow, a green wire with the yellow stripe, red wire with the green stripe, and I just stuffed it in the packing or the shroud for my positive and ground for the coil. Just kind of stuffed it all in here and then ran it over to these plugs. So where it comes into the plugs right here, you have a splice, and each one of these should have a splice, the green and the red. So it was originally spliced off into 3 wires, and I capped off one of the splices and retained the 2. And then we have our 2 plugs here. I basically depinned the rest of the wires that are still in there, just left them in the backside. They're not doing anything, it's fine. And then used the 2 wires and used that plug. And then I did the same thing with this plug, right? So this is your signal return, and this is your positive coil. So this is the coil plug, and then this is the plug that works for your coolant temp sensor and your oil pressure sensor. So the white one right here, this needs to run all the way down under the manifold to your oil pressure sensor, and this one runs to your coolant temp sensor. It's that simple. This signal return runs into, let's see here, make sure I give you the correct information. So it runs from here, from the plug to the splice, and on the back side of the splice I just kind of jam some shielding in there, and then this shielding, if you follow it right here, goes underneath my intake, and it supplies the TFI signal from the coil. So that green wire should just connect to the white wire that's on this new plug that you got in your kit if you're using TFI. And then the red wire, which is the positive from the coil, I just ran it in the shielding that goes across. There's a bunch, I personally have a bunch of shieldings that go across, and ran it into the kick panel on the other side, into the firewall, and connected it to the red and white wire that comes off your ECU. And that's how I basically wired those. These ones, just like I said before, they're not spliced, they're single wires. This red one with the white stripe, it goes and connects to your coolant temp sensor, which is right here, right? So you're supposed to cut these wires out of your harness as well. Sorry, my fucking things. You're supposed to cut these little plugs off of your harness as well if you're going to use them. And that's that red. It's hard to see because the oil, but that is that red wire with the white stripe. And the same thing with my coolant or my oil pressure sensor wire. Again, hard to see with all the oil. That's actually a white wire with a red stripe, and that's those 2 wires right there. So those are pretty basic. The green one, I just took one of the wires of the splice out and then ran it to my TFI plug, and the red one I ran across into the firewall for the ECU red and white wire. As far as running like the factory lines on this thing, I ran my, again, I don't know if this is what other people do because I just kind of made shit up. I ran my wideband O2 sensor to my driver's side, and kind of followed my clutch cable down and ran it underneath, cleared it of all the exhaust, and ran it to the bung that was already there on the driver's side. Let's see if I can
come over here.
There's still some wires I don't use, right? I'm using the internal map on the ECU, so I don't need this. I still have to find a place for it. I'm not quite done with everything. Just got the car running and started driving it. I use my factory TPS wires. I just spliced in my old plug. I don't know if that's the best way to do it, but that's what I did. And then obviously my IAC, I ran under my idle air control, I ran under the intake. And then you have my coolant temp sensor for the actual monitor itself. And then I have the oil pressure sensor for the Terminator X. I just actually need to hook up this thing. Bought this on like Amazon, right? So you have the little adapter, and then the extra transducer, and it plugs in to the Schrader valve right there. Kind of hard to focus, you know, but then that line will hook up. But other than that, I ran everything back through the firewall and then put the computer under the seat. Is where it's supposed to be mounted. But that's what I did. Let me know if you have any other questions.